I recently wrote an article about disruption and adoption, and I think that it would benefit business owners that are looking at disruptive technologies and looking at changing the face of business. According to the Merriam Webster Online Dictionary, disruption means the act or process of disrupting something, a break or interruption in the normal course or continuation of some activity, process, etc. The online Cambridge Dictionary describes adoption as accepting or starting to use something new. What is disruption as a commercial definition? The Harvard Business Review article, What is Disruptive Innovation, describes disruption as a process whereby a smaller company with fewer resources is able to successfully challenge established incumbent businesses. This article is intended to stimulate discussion around definition of successful disruption with a focus on the degree of adoption. Disruptive business models and disruptive technology have been thrown around loosely. Formulating disruptive models for the sake of disruption is short sighted. If the intention is for that model is to be commercially viable, that model begs the questions. How well will that model be adopted by the market? Is the model too far ahead of its time, or is it too difficult to deploy? Have the owners of the model considered infrastructure requirements, literacy levels, commercial viability, target market appeal, macroeconomic conditions, cost, ease of use, etc.? How to evaluate disruptive innovation? Research into existing offerings in the industry is vital to making decisions using data. This data needs to be accessed from reliable sources. Flawed data could send your strategy down a path that would end in failure. Pricing. Let's talk about pricing. Has the competition excluded a segment of the market based on pricing? This could be an area to target provided the margins make sense. Let's look at competitors' perception of your offering. Will the competitors regard you as a low quality offering due to the lower cost and therefore not class you as competition to their business? Sustained innovation strategy. Do you have a phase two strategy to help you migrate from a low end provider to then target the competitor's prime clients? This should be carefully devised using the jobs to be done theory. This is based on understanding what your customers are buying your product for. What job are you fulfilling in their lives using your product? For instance, a person buying a drill is actually buying a 4 centimeter hole in the wall. The drill is merely a tool to fulfill a job to be done, i.e., the hole in the wall. This creates a disruptive business model that will improve adoption rates. The low end will be your early adopters. Remember to work on your phase two strategy, either before you launch or during the early stages of phase one. This will remedy any lag you may encounter once you have captured the low end of the market. It will also help with first mover advantage on the competitor's prime client market. Remember, at the core of this model is to service the customer's needs above and beyond what they were expecting. So, interestingly, this is what the disruptive technology, disruptive industry, disruptive landscape, you know, um, is is classed as using these aspects of disruption. The new normal, uh, if you look at what is disruptive innovation, it goes on to explain existing incumbents tend to focus on servicing their most demanding and profitable customers at the cost of neglecting other segments of the total offering. This creates an opportunity for new disruptive entrants to enter the market and fulfill those needs with a disruptive model. This model preserves the aspects that made existing incumbents successful at inception and plugs in the innovation that increases value to the customer. This tends to fuel customer adoption of the disruptive model. There is a tendency for disruptors to capture new markets that never were customers to existing incumbents, and they capture existing low end customers that are not focused on by the existing incumbents. They become early adopters of the disruptive model. This has been used to describe true disruptors. In my opinion, the path a model takes to go to market is not as important as the actual degree of disruption to that industry. The definition of a disruptor should not hinge solely on its go to market strategy. If we looked at an example between Uber and Airbnb, which one is a disruptor and which one is not? When Airbnb announced that they were going to go public in 2020, I don't think the owners expected this phenomenal success that evolved from facilitating the service of providing low end accommodation seekers with air mattresses to find a safe place to bed down for the night or more. Now, the company's meteoric rise to success has propelled its revenue to $3.3 billion and a staff complement of more than 5,500. It satisfied the first attribute of a disruptor, i.e., it captured the low end of the market. The platform's popularity drove the increase in quality of accommodation offered. This began to appeal to those clients that used to frequent high-end hotels to now choose to stay in an Airbnb instead. The company's business model was driven by not having to own any property but merely provided a platform with vetted accommodation. The established hotel chains had huge fixed and variable overheads, and that made it impossible to compete on price. This disrupted the accommodation industry. Uber, on the other hand, was an alternate offering to an existing taxi industry and other modes of public transport. This was a sustained innovation model where Uber targeted the top of the market instead of low end, and once established at the top, they moved down to the low end of the market. This relegated Uber to a sustained innovator instead of a disruptor. The company had a revenue of $11.14 billion in 2020 and a staff complement of 26,900. So, if you want to look at an option of disruption and a sustainable innovation, the distinction should be made between these two and understand where your products or services fit within that scope. And if it is going to be something that's disruptive, look at cleaning up the bottom end of the market, the guys that have not been serviced well, the client base that has been there but has not been given the time of day because people have decided to take the cream of the crop. It's a great way to start building below the radar, and by the time competitors realize that you could seriously jeopardize their business, you've already got a hold on the market. So my suggestion is look at what it is that your business does. How can you then shift it to be a disruptor? Or if you are starting a new entity, where are the gaps? Where are the niches? What can you do better within that industry to improve that industry? Good luck.